friends, this is the Be Real Babe podcast, a place where your average Canadian wolf pack come together to talk about life's stresses, messes, and successes. A safe space where being yourself is the ultimate goal. Each week we will bring you new episodes, sharing our experiences on a ton of different topics, in hopes we get a better understanding of ourselves, each other, and this crazy world we live in. We want to build a community where we can show up as ourselves, be real, and lay it all out there. By sharing our experiences, we hope to reach others who can relate so we can all help each other learn, grow, and heal. But please keep in mind, as a disclaimer, none of us here are professionals, no one is giving any advice. We are strictly speaking of our life experiences and for entertainment purposes only. Now with that being said, it's time. So grab your drink, grab your joint, and let's jump right in. Welcome everyone. Welcome back to the Be Real Babe podcast. I'm your host, Brandy, and today we are on our 10th freaking episode. I can't believe I'm saying that right now. I'm beyond excited of where this has gone, where it's going, and all the exciting things we have to talk about. And today's episode, we're going to do our guest show on birth control. And our very first guest is a very dear gal to me. She's one of my best friends here in the Okanagan. I love her to pieces, and this is her first show. So I want to introduce to you my girlfriend, Brittany. Hey, Britt, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
I love that one of the very first things that we started talking about was actually a lot of our health conditions together, and birth control being one of the very first topics we talked about. So thank you so much for agreeing to come on and being super advocate of sharing your story because it's very similar. Well, not very similar, but we're going through shit at the same time. And it's just really awesome to have you with me going through this at the same time. I hope you feel the same way to have me to rely on for this wild ride of birth control.
Yeah, for sure. You're definitely a big part in my birth control journey.
Your discoveries of the wild world of what it is.
Exactly.
So before we jump into the questions today, love, is there a way you can give us a little bit of an idea of who you are before we jump into the questions that is birth control?
Yeah, for sure. So I was born and raised in Barrie, Ontario. I moved out to the Okanagan with my parents about almost 5 years ago now. I've kind of lived all around the Okanagan, went from laboratory jobs to the cannabis industry, where I met you.
Yeah.
I'm cat mom of 2.
Yes.
And yeah.
Plant mom to many.
To way too many.
Yeah.
Added 7 yesterday, I think.
I feel like with cats and plants, we can all agree if we're really in love with them. Like, what is really too many?
Exactly.
Like, there might be ideas out there, but we really have no limit on how many cats and plants we want to bring into the house, which for me sucks because I can't bring plants outside of like ones that are intense because my cats destroy all of them. So I really admire that your babies are good enough to respect your plant babies because mine don't.
Yeah, they literally don't even care about my plants, which is good.
Oh, they're so amazing. Benji does not give us a chance, and Sophie eats the pot plants all the time.
Oh, no.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, we have to keep all that on lockdown. But yeah, it's so wonderful to have met you in that industry too, because like we immediately became besties talking about cats and then diving like literally immediately talking about everything that was what we were going through. And I think that connected us so quickly and has grown our relationship so deep until then. So thank you for always being so open to talk about this because it helped me reassure me on my journey too.
Thank you.
With being birth control. So to get started then, my love, when did you start taking birth control and what were the reasons, if you don't mind sharing?
So it was pretty much right away. I think I had maybe 2 natural cycles and they were just super painful. So that's just what you do. You go to the doctor and they put you on birth control right away without even like going through your options or like talking about side effects or anything. So I think at first they put me on the patch because I wasn't so good with pills and all that. So I rocked the patch for 3 or 4 years, I think.
Nice.
And then over time, I tried different pills, and then I would like one of my biggest things was the cramps and then the acne. So I would think that maybe the pills stopped working because I started getting more cramping and acne. So I'd switch to a different one for a couple of years. So I've been on probably 6 or 7 different forms of hormonal birth control, just at like the patch and the pill.
Did you have Did you have, sorry to add that the patch, did you have any issues with that? Or you just felt like it wasn't working in the end and that's why you switched?
Yeah, I think it's just like the dose isn't as high as the pill, and it's like kind of gross stuck on your body, so it's like everyone can see it. So I just kind
Yeah.
of like grew out of that. I'm like, okay, I can deal with the pill now.
Yeah, for sure. Because especially when you're younger, it's hard to remember that.
Hmm.
It's even harder as an adult. So as a teen,
Oh
just like
yeah.
that, that's what my thought. How convenient, just put a patch on. But unfortunately for me, a couple months into it, I got a blood clot.
Oh
So
no.
I was, yeah, I was like, no, we're good. And then I don't know if you ever did. Sorry, I'll let you keep going on what kind, but the depot shot just really made me nervous of having something. I was like irrationally acting out about every other birth control. It's like having something in me for like a year just doesn't seem like a smart thing for me
Hmm.
at the moment. So I kind of steered clear of that. But yeah, it was the same ways. Birth control pills and the patch were my two go-tos at first. I think maybe the more easiest to stop and reverse if you try
Yeah,
both.
exactly. Like the pill or the shot and the implant kind of are appealing because you don't have to remember to take it every day. So it's like good for lazy people like me, but no, I never
Yeah, that's like me. It's
connected.
like stoners like me, that is nice. But the way my body reacts to everything, anything that's in for any sort of permanent or longer time makes me
Yeah.
nervous just because of my adverse reactions to literally everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And so what other birth, so you've tried the patch and then you've tried birth control pills. Is there any other form that you've been on or any type of birth control, like the names? Do you remember any of the birth
Oh,
control pill
I
names?
like the one I was on for the longest was probably Yaz, which is the one that like had a bunch of
Yeah.
side effects. People had blood clots from it, but I didn't seem to have any issues. I was on tricycline, like a bunch of
All three of us were.
non-branded ones. Um, yeah, those are like the two main ones probably, but there was many others.
Totally. And I felt like tricycline, all four of us that have talked about this so far have all said that we've been on that. I think that was like our age and our like
Hmm.
go-to at first. It's like, it was just funny. As soon as I heard it, I was like, that's the
Yeah,
one. Kind of forget. But so are you currently on birth control? And if you are, what kind of form do you use
I
now?
am not. So, I guess just over a year ago, last December or December 2019, after we talked, and you kind of opened my eyes to like what it could have been doing to my body, and like how you were just saying you were taking a break from it at the time. So maybe you had planned to go
Yeah.
back, but then I don't think either of us plan to go back now. So I went off of it, and then yeah, so it's been over a year. Definitely feel a lot different off of it. Um, I feel like my emotions are more in check, but then like I do get more of the like emotional roller coaster during my cycle that you would naturally
Yeah,
get.
for sure.
And yeah, you're just like more in tune with your body if it's like ovulating. Um, like obviously the acne hasn't really cleared up yet. I don't know if it ever will, but I do have like more hormonal issues that would be contributing to that. So hopefully someday I can get that in check.
Feel you there,
Yeah,
sister.
so I've just been using as birth control, like the Flow app is pretty easy to kind of work with to track your period and your like fertile days and condoms as a backup.
Yeah. And this is why I wanted you on here too, because I know you're in the exact same area and space that I am. And I just want us to inspire people to know that like that is a really it takes time and you got to be extra careful and it's an open dialogue with whoever you're sexually active with. But once you do that, sometimes I don't know about you, but I think for both of us, we were able with this app to then identify where we were in our cycles. And then some of those emotions were, you didn't dwell on them. Like, why am I feeling this way? It's like, oh, yeah, I'm 2 days, like the other day, I was like, really so upset. And I was like, why am I so upset? I have so many things to be happy about. I'm not really. And then I looked and it was like 2 days before ovulation. I was like, oh, okay. And then I didn't like focus on it all day. It was just kind of like, oh, well, yeah, I'm going to be off for the next little bit. And I could just like let it go
Yeah,
easier.
exactly. And actually, that's something I've
And I
learned in
think,
the last couple months, even kind of like doing some research, is that it's really not as easy to get pregnant if you're trying to avoid it as you think. Like sperm only lives for 5 days and your egg only lives for 48 hours. So there's really only a small window that is like super risky. But like I still use condoms as backup
Totally.
anyway. But it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not as easy as you'd think.
It's not as daunting as they
Yeah,
made it seem when we were teenagers. And I'm not saying at teenagers we shouldn't have been on birth control pills, but I think what we can all agree on is even just from understanding your fucking body is just knowing about reproductive health. I think that's just something that needs to be taught. And instead, I don't know for you, but for me, it was just like, oh, you're on the pill. That's it. None of the rest matters. But there was no discussion about the mental health aspect and what that could do. There was no, it's just that it was safe. And I'm not saying it's not for everyone, but at least even now we know women that do hormonal birth control, it's still important to track and know where you are in your cycle because it's so telling to your body's response, your mind's response, and everything. And I think you can attest to that too. Like, and then we all kind of make a joke of it now because we're so aware of where we are. And it's a lot easier than just being like, oh, I'm crazy. It's like, that's where you are in your cycle. And then just being aware of it makes it so much easier to deal with.
exactly. Yeah, so
And I love that.
sorry,
Sorry, go ahead.
so also another side effect I didn't mention is the cramps. Like I'd say about 75% of my cycles off of the pill have been painless. So I think just over time it's gonna like, your hormones are gonna even out and it's gonna get all more natural. Because I've been on birth control for like 14 years, right? So it's a lot to recover for your body, I think.
Yeah, and to find that balance. And I think that was one of the things that you were worried about the most coming off is you're like, well, I was just worried like when I before, that's why you went on them because of your cramps. And then after a while you're like, well, fuck, I'm getting cramps anyway, so why not give this a shot? And it was so not exciting, but it was so nice to hear you every single time just that validation like, oh my god, I got my period and I'm not dying. And then you did have your couple, but it was like, yeah, but 3 out of 5 have been great or 4 out of 5 have been great. And it was so nice for you to see that like positive reinforcement that yeah, of course it's going to be there sometimes, but it wasn't necessarily helping you either being on it anymore for
I
pain.
was able to lower my thyroid medication quite a bit by coming off the birth control within even like
Mm.
6 months. So that just shows you, like, I definitely think putting hormones into your body is messing with our like endocrine systems and our hormones that are naturally produced.
Yep. And I think too that was like one of your biggest clicks. You're like, oh my god, is this birth control fucking with my thyroid that I've been dealing with this up and down for so long? Is this playing a factor? And it was almost like this lit this fire inside of you. You're like, okay, yeah, this is it. I'm ready to jump in and try a different way of birth control because this is messing up what I'm already trying to fix. Like this is you're already trying to get to the root cause of that, and now this synthetic hormone is just shoved in, making another factor harder for you to get to that root cause and bring your thyroid to a better
Yeah, I
level,
don't
right?
think there's a coincidence that like 1 in 3 women suffer with thyroid problems, and that probably around the same statistics have been on birth control for like over 10 years, right?
Yes, yeah, there has to be a link to that. Like there just has to be. There's no way that
Yeah,
there's not.
exactly.
I'm I hope that there's more into it, or at least having the discussions for all women. Like we said earlier, birth control is important, but it's also important to understand the interactions it does with other medications or other things that you're suffering from, and it could highlight or dim that. And it's just to be super aware of that, so you know that you're not crazy or broken, and that there could be answers. You just have to keep fighting for them. And I know out of anybody in the world, you are one person that fights to get answers for why your body is the way it is. So I'm really glad that this was like kind of like an unlocking of one, like what would you say, like throw in your bump in your road to kind of help clear, to help you get closer to finding the root cause of what's going on with your all your signals in your body. This is like a removal
Yeah,
of
for
that,
sure. I think it was
so you
a
can walk.
good step for sure. And also just like so many women I know are on birth control, like either IUD or the pill or anything, and like they definitely have symptoms that, they're either their mood or um like it can make you severely depressed or give you gut issues. You don't attribute that to birth control, but like there's definitely side effects that you don't, would never associate with it.
Totally. Or you
Yeah,
weren't
exactly.
told. And then you put it all together, and then, so I think that's why we just want to open up the conversation and see how many times it's happened where they're like, we're all four of us were like, oh wow, we didn't realize. And then once we realized, at least if you're going to be on any form, at least knowing what you're into, right? So Kayla's been really successful so far with her hormonal IUD, where we have another girl that wasn't, and she's on one that's not. Where it's like, for us, none of that's working for us, so we're just able to stay clear, where one woman can be great on it. And it's like, but I think for us, we were just told that, like, oh, it's not your birth control, that's normal. And it's like, but no, it could be the
Yeah.
problem, right? And that's worth a conversation with your doctor. So to look at both sides of using birth control, what are some ways? We've heard some negative, but if you were to like put them on a list of positive and negatives, what would you say? How would birth control have positively affected your life? Or is there a
Like
positive?
obviously it helps with the acne and the cramping and like the like not having to worry about getting knocked up and stuff.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, the confidence of
Yeah,
knowing.
so like it definitely positives, but do they outweigh the negative side effects? For me, I don't think so.
And I'm the same
Yeah,
way.
like my libido was definitely very low on birth control, and like I didn't even attribute it to that.
Nope. And we just, in our beginning episode, we just, like, through me researching, that is a side effect
Yeah.
right on the list. And nobody, I just thought I know we talked about this, like, I thought I was crazy for the longest time when I was on it, and especially certain ones. And I was like, what the but no, it's not. It's actually a side effect, and you don't realize it, and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And what were some of the other ways it's negatively affected you?
Um, just like low mood and like weight gain and obviously affecting my thyroid's probably the biggest one.
For sure. And then now, and I think I know the answer to this, but looking at hormonal birth control now and knowing how well you can track and use other options, do you think, I mean, obviously things can happen, but do you foresee as of right now going back on hormonal birth control?
No, I don't see any reason to. Like, if a guy really doesn't want to wear a condom, then you shouldn't give him your energy. That's how I feel.
Yes. Yeah, we just talked about that, and how, like, I don't know if it was like this for you, because there's sometimes that 4 to 5 year gap can make a huge difference, but for me it was always kind of like the push was, it was just always easy and no real side effects of a girl just taking a pill, and that's just kind of how society
Hmm.
always raised me. So it was just like insane to turn around and be like, what, there's other ways. And like I said, I had the open conversation with Grant, and I was like, I can't put myself through this anymore. I just need a break. Can we just talk about this so I'm safe to just get off this and figure it out? And I think that's, you were in the same situation. You're just like, I can't do this anymore. And it's so wonderful to know that there's other people that are successful without having to mess with their hormones, that's really causing you so much grief in your life. And it was for me and for you, I know too.
Yeah, exactly. If he loves and supports you, he will understand.
Yes. And like we said, it's not that like, okay, so this is a big thing. Is like when you were younger, I don't know about you, but it was made to believe, and maybe just because my mom was super fertile, like that's a very good possibility of why I feel this way. She's like got pregnant like that. Like the woman got her IUD out, and I think she was pregnant the next month. Like, I'm not even joking. So maybe that's just how I was raised, but it was kind of like, even if you looked at another guy or looked at a boy, another guy, just any boy, you were going to get pregnant. If you like kissed them, you were going to get pregnant. And it was just like, yes, for some people, sure, but it's not, like you said, once you get down to the nitty gritty of it and you look at it as a number wise, there is only certain windows. Like, when it's before your period, which I know some people have had it in their period and they still got pregnant, everybody's different, but like, it's not as easy if you look at the
Exactly.
numbers of it.
Yeah, they don't actually teach
There's
you
a very
like
small
how
window.
that works, right?
Yeah. And how great would that, not saying that we would have taken or listened to that. And I'm sure birth control is the right way for that age, for sure. But I think just having the tool of understanding your reproductive organs would
Oh,
have been such a
exactly.
great tool. even as 20s, into your 20s and your 30s. So if you are feeling crazy, you don't have to feel like just taking that pill. And that, like, it makes sense that it decreases your libido. It removes your ovulation. So that's when your body is ready to be like, hey,
Yeah,
let's
no,
make a
your
baby.
body literally
And then
thinks it's pregnant all the time, so it just does all this weird stuff. I know.
I hate our bodies sometimes. I love and hate them at the same time. It's like, just stop. And then 2 weeks later, because you're not actually, it throws a hissy fit, and Aunt Flo comes in and just ruins your life for the most
I
part.
more just
But
have distrust in doctors
it's
for just like blindly putting children on hormones that they will be dependent on
yeah,
for a large portion of their adult lives if they don't educate themselves.
totally. And when we did the poll about when you started birth control and what form, and did it affect your mental health, not being shocked that I think it was like 95% of people were started when they were in teenagers. 75% of those people had issues with their mental health, or that it affected their mental health. And I think it was like 99% of those people started in teens on birth control
Oh
pills.
yeah, and those are like your young
So, I
impressionable
mean,
years. Like that's going to shape you for the rest of your life.
yeah. Right. And so those things that you had, like anxiety and depression, now all of a sudden you're adding those synthetic hormones in, and everybody's different. So to just blindly put everyone on tricycline low when we're all
Yeah, do you
different,
actually have depression,
I don't
anxiety, or
know.
is it just the hormones messing with our systems? You really don't know.
Exactly. And then did we develop these terrible patterns out of that, believing or having that hormone in, that we were depressed, that we just put ourselves in this constant state, and then now we are depressed even without that, or something, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And even just knowing that would have been a part of a contributing factor. I don't know about you, but I just like, oh, I'm just fucking
Oh
crazy.
yeah.
Like,
There's no
that's it.
rationalizations for your
That's the answer.
emotions.
No. And they're all over the place. And then and then you just feel all over the place, and then you don't feel in
Yeah,
control. And that's not a nice
that's
feeling.
for sure.
And you're like, oh, wow. Not saying that I wouldn't have, but maybe it would have opened the conversation to be like, oh, I need to be on a different
Yeah,
birth
that's
control
probably
pill, or,
why I kept switching them
or
so
what.
much because I just never felt right.
Yeah, and rightfully so. Like, gee, especially if you were having issues, or maybe that developed your thyroid issue, or who fucking knows. But it would have been nice to know that that's part of the
Exactly.
equation. So Britt, I already know a lot of this stuff, and it was really great to go through it in real life time with you. And honestly, if I could be completely honest, I always like kind of held my breath for the first couple of months, because I know I really was like not pushing you to do it, but just to really like look in, and I'm, because I wanted you to be better, but I just also wanted to like know if this is like, am I making these right connections, that this is disrupting this for her. And it was a sense of relief every time that you're like, oh my gosh, like I got it, but it wasn't as bad. And it was like, not only were you not hurting, but it was like you're getting closer to finding the answers of what was going on with you. And I was always super nervous, because I was like, oh man, did I push her in the right direction?
I
You're an
am.
independent woman,
No,
so you
I
wouldn't have done it
super
if you didn't want
appreciate the
to. But
conversations we had, and like you're just like me, like you question everything. I think that's super important, not to just like blindly take something because it's what everyone's doing, right?
yeah, yeah, totally. And what's is safe for one person isn't always
Yeah,
safe for the
exactly.
next, right? And so that's and I my favorite part about you as a human, not favorite because I wish none of this was happening for you, but my favorite part about you is that you're very like aware, and like, yeah, this is what's wrong, and I'm doing this and this to try and figure out how to make it better. And that makes me so much more accountable for listening to my body and listening to the responses it's having and looking into that. So thank you for always like allowing me to be questioning myself, and like pushing me to question things that never felt right with me either, and being on this free birth control journey and tracking it and just being so honest, so that we can both work through this together. And it's been awesome to watch. Is there anything else about your experience with birth control that maybe you want to share with people that are going through similar situations, with the community, to help them feel a little less alone, or anything you wish you maybe would have told yourself when you were upset, or like going through your worst part of thyroid and being like,
Yeah, just like I think this is just good advice for life, but just like don't just don't be a sheep. Don't do something just because someone tells you to do it. Even if they're a doctor. I have little trust in doctors these days, but question everything, do your own research, talk to actual people, because I think it like not only research is important, but actual people's life experiences. You may be feeling things that you may not even make the connection that it might be caused by something you're taking, like a synthetic hormone or medication. Yeah, just keep on like being an advocate for you and your health, and it'll work out if you pursue it long enough.
It will. And you're such a testament to that. And like, for those that don't know, like, even when it comes down to dealing with your thyroid, you have eliminated stuff in your diet. You have done stuff physically. And I know you're working on, like, you always do work on the mental aspect of it. Like, you really understand that your health has multifaceted of things to it. And you know, like, you eliminated completely, like, you love your beer and you completely eliminated that to try and see what works for your health. And you are such an advocate for being like, hey, there's some stuff in your lifestyle that you might be doing that's going to affect your what's happening with your body. And I just, like, I commend you so much for always doing those things, even though it might sacrifice some things, like, especially, like, you know how much I look up to you, even though I know I couldn't do, like, how you eat with veganism. Like, I look up to you so much because that is such an amazing lifestyle change that you took, you know, for someone outside of you. And you've worked with that to be a successful human and still function and still be able to respect your morals. And it's the same thing with your food. Like, you love going out and going to the beers and the breweries, but you're gonna sacrifice that to look at your health and what's most important. And I
Well,
just
thank
really
you.
respect
Yeah,
that
it's
in you.
definitely like a long journey, and I'm nowhere close to being like optimal with my health, but yeah, I'm still trying different things every day to see if I can figure out what's going on. And yeah, basically just like persevere and you'll figure it out, I think.
You do. And I think that helps your mental health too. I think you can attest that if you were to, like, ignore that and get more upset, you know,
Oh,
and
it's
we
definitely
all have our
trying.
days,
Yeah.
but half the time, yeah. And you've had your days where, like, no, fuck that. I'm going to do this and I'm going to commit to it for the next 3 months. I'm going to go see this person. I'm going to talk to that person. Like, you are a survivor and you keep pushing. And I'm excited to have you back on the show to talk about other things that you're super passionate about, because you have such a great story and you're such a fighter. And I want a lot of people to know that, you know, you can keep fighting for you and what's best for your body. And you're a warrior for that. So thanks again, my
No,
love, for
thank you
coming
for
onto the
having me.
show and for being here.
Oh,
I
it's
hope you
so
had a good
fun.
time talking about birth control. Yes, and thank you for being on this journey. And now we're going to jump to our second guest of the show, and stay tuned. We're going to jump right on.